Allison walked slowly along the boardwalk. She was returning home from work. It was a difficult day. She was on her feet all day long, and by late afternoon, she felt the pain in her lower abdomen and lower back. Her baby was restlessly tossing and turning in her belly at first, and then stopped. Allison worried about whether the baby was okay. There was only one thing to make her happy on this gloomy evening. Vincent was supposed to visit her tonight, and Allison was thinking about what she would buy at the grocery store to make a delicious dinner. She wanted to go on maternity leave as soon as possible to spend more time with her beloved and enjoy this pregnancy. But maternity was still a month and a half away. Now she could only dream of waking up in the morning and cuddling in bed, making breakfast slowly, and then taking long, pleasant walks in the park, or just relaxing on the waterfront and watching the beautiful sunset. She also dreamed of buying different things for the baby. She imagined shopping, maybe even together with Vincent, holding hands and laughing, discussing what stroller or crib they would buy for their son or daughter, and if Vincent finally decided to move out of his mother's house and live with her as he promised, they would argue in the evenings about what name they should choose for the baby. Allison had high hopes for tonight. She thought that tonight Vincent would ask her to live with him, or even ask her to marry him. While thinking about it, she didn't immediately hear the phone vibrate in her purse. The girl usually turned off the sound at work, but today, on her way home, she forgot to switch off silent mode. At first, Allison didn't even realize why it sounded so quiet and somewhat timid, as if her phone didn't want her to hear and answer the call. "Hi, Allison," she heard the voice that was so dear. The mother-to-be wanted to hear this voice as she thought about her baby. It was the voice of her beloved, the voice of the father of that baby. "Vincent, hello. Why are you calling? Have you changed your plans? You promised to come tonight. I'm about to cook dinner," the girl replied. "Look, I'm not coming. I'll never come to you again. I've thought about it and decided I'm not ready for a serious relationship, and I don't want this baby," the man muttered quietly and timidly. "Vincent, what are you talking about? What do you mean you don't want this baby? I'm 6 months pregnant." Allison didn't want to believe the harsh words she had just heard. "I think we should break up. I'm sorry, but go on without me. From now on, you have your life and I have mine, and there's nothing between you and me. That's it. Goodbye." And Vincent hung up. In a moment, the whole world collapsed. Allison was standing on the sidewalk. Random passers-by were rushing past her, and she couldn't move. Her eyes were staring at one point, and she couldn't see anything else. Her brain refused to believe what had happened. She thought she was sleeping and having a nightmare. This nightmare would be over soon, and everything would be okay again. "Help! Help!" Allison heard a sharp scream and came to her senses. She flinched and immediately rushed toward the sound of the scream. Near the boardwalk, she saw some movement behind the trees. She got a little closer and realized a guy was lying on the ground, and 3 drunken men were kicking him. "Get out of our country, migrant! What the hell do you want here? Go home! Don't make us so angry!" The thugs were kicking a young, foreign-looking guy, while a janitor was running around them and waving her hands helplessly. "Bastards!" Allison didn't panic and grabbed the lawn rake the janitor was using to rake up the leaves. "Get out of here, bastards!" When they saw the pregnant woman with a distraught look and the rake in her hands, the thugs quickly sobered up and decided to leave, continuing to swear and curse all the migrants everywhere. Allison dropped her threatening weapon and walked over to the boy to examine his wounds. "Can you talk?" the girl asked. "Yes," the guy said, breathing heavily. "Thank you." "Let me call an ambulance," Allison suggested. No, don't. I'm fine. They didn't have time to injure me too badly. You saved me," the guy mouthed, Get up, let me help you. You're dirty and they tore your clothes. Let's go to my place. You can wash your face and we'll wash your clothes. And we'll make sure you don't have a concussion. What's your name? The girl asked, helping him up. Daylor, the boy answered. Oh, what a beautiful name. I'm Allison. It turned out that the guy came here from another country to work. He'd been working at a construction site for 3 months, and when payday came, his employer stopped answering the phone and didn't even pay a fifth of what he had to pay. I promised to send money to my mother. She's sick, and I have sisters growing up. I'm the only breadwinner in our family since my father died long ago. I used to send them everything I earned, but now I don't know what to do. Do I have to go back to the construction site to get scammed again? I might not get paid ever again, and I'll lose my time. They are dishonest people, but at home I have no chance to earn even this small amount of money. And my mother really needs help. So I'm trying to figure out what to do. On top of that, those thugs attacked me. They're completely insane. They shouted that it was my fault that they had a bad life. Well, what's my fault? Do I force them to drink alcohol? Do I forbid them to get a job? I didn't kick them and take their money. The guy told his story. Allison looked at the very young man and sympathized. Her heart was torn apart. She had to do something to help him. How did you have the guts to attack 3 big drunken guys alone? Even I was a little scared when I saw you with a rake in your hands. You're about to have a baby, but you weren't afraid? The boy muttered. You know, I was raised at an orphanage. I'm not used to being afraid. Allison smiled sadly. In the orphanage, if you're afraid and try to hide, you're a victim. And the victim gets hurt by absolutely everyone. And if you show everyone you're not weak, even if you have to fight, they'll respect you. That's why I'm used to attacking first instead of waiting for them to hurt me. And the rake, I have no idea what I was going to do with the rake. I just grabbed the first thing that came to hand. Allison laughed. Good thing they got away before I figured out how I was going to hit them with that rake. You're brave, said Daylor admiringly. Not brave, but reckless, laughed Allison. I can't even imagine the horror these drunks have experienced. A woman with a huge belly and a rake in her hands running from behind the trees. You're pretty and very young. How old are you? The guy asked embarrassedly. I'm 22. What about you, Daylor? I'm sorry, but you look like a teenager, Allison replied. I'm 18. I'm an adult, the boy said confidently. Allison looked at this adult. As he said, he was not afraid to go to another country, where he was despised and deceived, just to get money for his mother's treatment. Suddenly she thought of Vincent. He was 28, had a good job, a steady income, a place to live, and a prosperous family. But he was not ready to take responsibility for his own baby. Allison cried. What happened? Did I hurt you? Worried Daylor. No, it's just that I was listening to your story and thinking about how brave you are, and I suddenly thought of my own problems, so I felt unbearably sad, Allison said, wiping away her tears. Oh, please don't cry. Everything will be fine. You shouldn't be sad. It's bad for the baby. Smile more often, and the baby will feel good, the boy reassured her. You're a good guy, Daylor. I'll try to help you out. And Allison kept her promise. The next day, she called her friend Haley, who helped the boy to get a job at the restaurant. Haley was friends with the manager of that restaurant and asked him to hire the boy, assuring him that Daylor was responsible and hardworking. He couldn't make much money there, but the position of a janitor and a part-time watchman was very convenient for him. Working as a watchman, he could spend every night at the restaurant, so he didn't need to rent a place to live. In addition, the restaurant provided free meals for the staff, so Daylor could send all the money he earned to his mother and sisters. The boy was very grateful to Allison and swore that someday he would thank her for everything she did for him. Take care of yourself, and don't let anyone else hurt you. I wish your mother good health, and I wish you that you always have a family and a home where you can come back whenever you want. Allison said goodbye. They said goodbye and went their own way. Allison gave birth to a boy, Alex. Vincent didn't come back to her. He didn't even call or ask about his son. Allison accepted the fact that Alex wouldn't have a father. Her friend Haley helped her as much as she could, going shopping or babysitting, so Allison could sleep or do the laundry. And everything would have been fine, but Alex was diagnosed with a heart defect that wasn't detected until after delivery. From then on, Allison's whole life began to revolve around her son's disorder. The baby was very weak and often sick. At the slightest physical exertion, he became pale and breathed heavily. While most children his age were running around the playgrounds, Alex sat with his mother on the bench and could only dream of playing games, running fast and fighting with other boys. Allison took him to the pool so that the boy could get some physical activity. But still, she always felt that her son could feel bad at any moment. She was afraid she might lose him. When Alex turned 6, the boy's conditions suddenly worsened, and he urgently needed surgery. Previously, the doctors thought that he would gradually get better over the years, but now it was clear that the surgery could no longer be postponed. They needed a lot of money. Poor Allison always knew this day might come, but still, she wasn't ready for it. She had almost no money, and the doctors insisted that Alex needed urgent hospitalization. Allison decided to find Vincent. She realized that in all these years, he had never called or tried to find her and ask about their son. But she was desperate and hoped that his conscience would finally awake. Mrs. Morrison, Vincent's mother, opened the door. Allison hadn't seen the woman in a long time, and actually, Vincent had never introduced them. "Hello, excuse me, is Vincent home?" asked Allison. "Who are you?" the elderly woman wondered. "Don't you remember me? I dated your son a long time ago, almost 6 years ago," Allison replied. "Allison?" the woman asked in surprise. "Yes, it's me. Mrs. Morrison, is your son at home?" the girl asked timidly. "Oh, Allison, he's in jail," the woman replied sadly. "In jail? What happened?" The girl was shocked. She hadn't expected to hear that from his mother. Vincent was never inclined to break the law or commit crimes. Allison glanced at the living room where the woman who could have been her mother-in-law years ago invited her. Obviously, they were wealthy, a big house, expensive natural wood furniture. It wasn't like Vincent had to rob to survive. "What did he do? Why did he end up in jail?" Allison asked. "Allison, when he broke up with you, he met some bad girl. From the first moment I saw her, I knew there was no good outcome. I often fought with him. I begged him not to get involved in anything this girl would offer, but he wouldn't listen to me. That bitch got him into drug business. He was supposed to distribute drugs. Vincent did everything for her, but she couldn't get enough. She wanted more. I couldn't stop crying when he got arrested. And that bitch broke up with Vincent and left the city with another man. Both of them were doing it, but only Vincent ended up in jail." Mrs. Morrison muttered and cried. At that moment, Allison felt sorry for the lonely old woman. "Allison, why are you here? Do you need something? Why are you looking for Vincent?" she asked, wiping away her tears. Her face filled with hope. Maybe this strong young woman still loved her good-for-nothing son. Maybe she would be willing to wait for him and take care of him while he was in jail. Maybe she's willing to take care of her old mother-in-law, too. "Did you know that Vincent and I were supposed to have a baby? Vincent has a son. His name is Alex." Allison was sure that Vincent had never told his mother that his girlfriend was expecting a baby. She was wrong. "Yes, I knew you were pregnant," Mrs. Morrison replied. "Frankly, I was the one who persuaded Vincent not to marry you and take responsibility for the family and the baby. I'm not going to lie, it was my fault that he left you. I'm so sorry. Didn't you have an abortion?" "What abortion are you talking about? It was 28 weeks, Allison replied angrily. "Well, induced labor or whatever it's called. It's possible even in late pregnancy. It's not a big deal," shrugged the woman who had just found out she had become a grandmother. "And why didn't you ever call and show your son?" Allison was shocked at how easily this woman confessed that she had persuaded her son to break up with his pregnant girlfriend. She didn't understand why Vincent's mother hadn't even asked about her grandson's fate in all those years. And now she was blaming Allison for not getting rid of Alex. And once she gave birth, not calling and showing the baby. Let's not talk about the past right now. Allison decided to get over herself and ask for help after all. The thing is, your grandson Alex is terminally ill. He needs heart surgery. Please, help us even a little. If you help him, you will save his life. I've never asked you for help, but I'm desperate now. Mrs. Morrison's face became deliberately sympathetic. Oh, I'm so sorry, but there's nothing I can do. You know, I've been living alone for almost 4 years since Vincent got into jail. I got into debt when I was trying to get Vincent out, so I'm sorry, but I can't help you. After losing interest in Allison, the woman hurried to say goodbye to her, saying that she was busy. Actually, Allison didn't want to stay in that inhospitable house anymore. The door slammed shut behind her, and she walked out of the yard with a sigh. Why did I get so upset? Was I really hoping she would help us? I shouldn't come to this house ever again. There are many decent people in this world. I believe that someone will help me and Alex after all. But who? The woman thought. By now, Allison had called everyone she could and owed money to everyone she knew. She managed to get a small loan from the bank, but she still didn't have enough money. Vincent was her last hope, but even that faint hope had burst like a bubble. She needed to do something urgently. Allison stopped at an intersection and reflected. Where should she go? Who else should she ask for help? Various charitable organizations came to mind, but Allison realized that if she and Alex applied there, it would only get into a huge line of people with sick children. But she didn't have time to wait. A car pulled up sharply beside Allison, and she even stepped back in surprise. At the same moment, the car door swung open, and a smiling, unfamiliar man looked out. Allison, is that you? It's been a long time since I've seen you, the stranger said. Allison tried to think of who it could be, but she couldn't remember. It's me, Daler, the man said. At the same moment, all the events that had happened more than 6 years ago flashed before the girl's eyes. She remembered the young migrant she had saved from drunken troublemakers. Daler, I didn't recognize you right away. You've changed a lot. Matured. Now you really look like an adult. Allison laughed happily. Yeah, now I'm definitely an adult. I saw you at the intersection and immediately recognized you. Get in, I'll give you a ride. Where are you going? The man offered. You know, I don't know where I should go yet. Can you take me home? Allison asked modestly. Sure, the man replied confidently. At home, Allison made tea, and they talked for a long time. Daler told her about his life. I'm not sure if you remember, but back then I got a job in a restaurant with your help. For almost 6 months, I worked there as a janitor and a watchman. It was hard, but I didn't complain. I sent all the money to my mother. When I got my first paycheck, I bought flowers and came to see you. I wanted to thank you, but I was afraid of what your husband would say. He probably doesn't know that you saved me, risking yourself and the baby. I was going to say thank you for helping me get a job, but I couldn't find you at your old address. I didn't know your friend Haley either, and I couldn't find you or her. At first, I wanted to ask the restaurant manager, but then I thought if I came to you with flowers, your husband wouldn't be happy. Daler smiled. His smile was very sincere, and he was so handsome that if Allison's head wasn't busy with problems, she probably could have fallen in love with this young man right there. And Daler went on. I gave the flowers to the old lady outside your building, and I thought I would just pray for you and your family. Yeah, I moved to another apartment to save money, and I don't have a husband, and never had. Alex's father left us the day we met. I wasn't myself that day. Allison smiled sadly. Wow, no way. You were in so much trouble that day, but you rushed to help a stranger? Especially since you were pregnant. I've never met anyone as kind and brave as you. There are no others like you in the whole world, the man said with admiration. Thank you, but you're exaggerating. I think there are many kind people in the world. After all, you're doing fine now. Someone helped you too, Allison said. You won't believe it, but you helped me with this too. You taught me to help people without thinking about myself. That's what happened to me while I was working in the restaurant. One night I went out to the backyard of our restaurant and saw that someone had stolen the manhole cover. I rushed to find some planks to cover it so no one would fall in. At that moment, our manager's youngest son was riding his bicycle and fell into the manhole. He didn't even have time to understand what happened. As it turned out, the manhole was very deep and full of water. I decided to go down. The boy hit his head and was unconscious. I took him in my arms so he wouldn't get drowned and started screaming and calling for help. Suddenly, I realized I should have called for help before I went down the manhole. Fortunately, the waiter went out for a smoke, heard me screaming, and got us out. The restaurant manager was grateful that I had saved his son. He gave me some money. I was able to buy a car and start a small business. My sisters got married. Their husbands are very good and well off. My mother now lives with one of my sisters. She takes care of her. And my second sister's husband also moved here. We're business partners and recently opened our second national cuisine restaurant. So now I'll be happy to see you and your son at my restaurant anytime. My sister became a famous chef and now works in my restaurant. She'll cook for you delicacies you've never tasted before. Come with your son. By the way, how old is he? About 6 years old, right? Where's he now? The man looked questioningly at Allison. I'm so happy for you, Daler. Unfortunately, we don't have time to go to the restaurants and have fun. Alex is in the hospital. Allison tried to hold back her tears, but she cried anyway. Strong women also cry sometimes. Daler was shocked. I'm sorry, I didn't know. What happened, Allison? He asked. And Allison told the man about her life, about Alex, and about what his only grandmother had done to them today. Allison, I don't think our meeting was an accident. Destiny brought us together again. Back then, your fiancé left you and you met me. You saved me. Today, his mother hurt you, and we met again. Why? Because you believe in people. And not just believe, but you help people. And they won't leave you in trouble either. The man calmed Allison down. I want to believe that they won't leave me in trouble. Allison smiled weakly through her tears. She felt that something good was finally beginning to happen in her miserable, lonely life. She didn't realize what it was yet. After all, she had never had a reliable man in her life. She never had anyone at all. And Daler kept going on. I won't leave you in trouble. Do you trust me, Allison? He spoke firmly and clearly so that this desperate, nice woman would hear him and believe him. Now you and Alex have me. Even if I have to be a watchman and a janitor again, I'll help you anyway. If I have to, I'll sell the business and the car, and then I'll start all over again. My sisters and mother are fine now. They don't need my help anymore. But you need it, and I owe you my life. Then he glanced at Allison's shabby room, which she had recently moved into to save money, and said firmly, Pack, right now. I won't let you live here. Allison was shocked and asked him in surprise, Daler, but I have nowhere else to go. You're coming with me. I have a big house. I live alone, so there's enough room for everyone. After all, we're not strangers. And tomorrow morning, we'll go to the hospital and schedule Alex's surgery. You said it was urgent, and don't say no. I won't take no for an answer. I promise I'll do everything for you. As it turned out, Daler was a good negotiator. He knew how to talk to Allison, so he didn't ask, but spoke affirmatively and confidently. Allison realized that from now until her last breath, she would never be alone again. Finally, there was a real man in her life. He wasn't even 24 yet, but he was more mature and responsible than some people in their 30s or their 50s. Now Allison was sure that Alex would be well. A woman's intuition told her that she would be happy too, not just as a mother, but as a woman, loved and protected by her man.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated. making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? "I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself. This could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. "Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay?" I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. "Yes, I'm inviting my father." "That's great. I might invite my parents too." I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.